Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shaper Sessions. My name is Jake.
And I'm Russ.
Today, we are focusing on dominoes.
Yep, we're going to show you all about installing dominoes using Origin and Shaper Plate. And you might wonder, why are we doing this? Because there's a domino joiner out there. But if you don't have one, we think this is a really great way to install dominoes. And there's a couple tricky use cases for the domino joiner that we think using Origin plus Plate totally solves. It just makes it easier, even if you already have a domino joiner.
Yeah.
So we're going to learn about that.
And of course, for those that aren't aware, we're not talking about these dominoes. We're talking about Festool's wooden dominoes.
We're talking about these dominoes. Here, why don't you hold one of these up? Everybody knows what we're talking about.
They are a wonderful floating tenon option for creating casework, joinery of all kinds. We're going to make a small case today with a floating shelf.
Yeah. Before we get started, this is a live show, so welcome. We've got a live chat going on the side of your screen, and we've got our guy Ted in the chat answering questions. So if you've got any questions during the show, make sure to type those out. The big questions he will send us to do live demos for at the end of the show. So even if they're a juicy question, please ask them. It just might have to wait a little bit so that we can give it the time that it deserves.
Yeah.
At the end of the show, we also do a really cool giveaway.
We do. Got a couple of fun giveaways today. So stick around.
To enter that giveaway, you're going to answer a poll question that comes up about halfway through the show. We'll make sure that you know when that's coming up. It's going to be, we're going to do 2 demos. We're going to do some explaining, and then that poll question will come up. So just make sure you hang on for that, and then hang on for the end of the show, where we'll do that giveaway.
Cool. Well, as always, we like to cut straight into some cutting actions. So we're going to go ahead and cut the first round of dominoes.
Yeah, nice. So we've got one panel that's totally uncut here. We've got one panel that's kind of started. We're just going to finish up. Actually, you know what? Let's show off before we totally dive into it what we're even doing. So what we're cutting. This is that case. Okay, so 2 schools of thought on how you make the case. Do you give it a cap, a top, and a bottom, or do you let the side panels go all the way up to the top? We did it this way today. And so what we're cutting on this case side right now are the mortises for the top and bottom dominoes right here. So we're going to do this demo, and then we're going to walk you all the way through how we totally set this up from scratch so that you can follow along with the steps and do it at home. But yeah, let's get ripping.
Sweet. All right.
Nice, right into it. So, you may remember if you've watched the session before that Plate is the universal template for Origin. It works just like your classic router jigs, where you bring the jig to the work and the jig tells the router where to go through space. In this case, we've got this Plate template set up with a bunch of domino templates from the hardware catalog. And you might say, these look like a simple slot. Why would you even download that from the hardware catalog? Well, even if they're simple, it can be a thing to wrap your head around making these templates for yourself. So this totally takes care of that for you. And with the hardware catalog, you know that those dimensions are spot on. And we took some care putting these hardware catalog templates together to make sure that the size was just right for every domino. And not only do we have this standard tight fit, we also have the wider fits that Festool uses for the looser tenons. And these wider fits match exactly actually what the domino joiner itself does. And we'll walk you guys through that. The process for installing these dominoes, we'll talk about this more again as we go through the session, but you want to have one locating domino and one looser fit domino tenon. So that's why Jake's doing these 2 different widths on here. And since this is a narrow cabinet, we're just doing 2 per side, one tight for locating and one loose. Just easily flip that around there. And we're going to use Plate's side flags and the front fence to align to a corner. So this is kind of our analog to those pop-up tabs on the domino joiner itself. This allows you to really easily locate to a corner for repeatable work. Origin is a handheld CNC router for woodworking, so as Jake's moving Origin around kind of roughly in this space, it's sticking right to that dotted line. That dotted line represents the tool path that the router's following. And all Jake has to do is move it kind of roughly around that domino, not keeping it exactly on the line, but getting it close enough where it can keep itself to that line and make that cut right on size. So we've got the small one, just hitting the select button to select the wider mortise again for this size, and following it right around. And we'll walk through what AutoPass means here later again in the show as well. We're going to try to reiterate all this stuff a bunch of times, but Jake is using AutoPass here so that as he goes around this mortise 3 times, it takes him all the way down to the bottom in 3 easy, continuous passes without having to stop and reset that depth. There we go. I like that too. Sweet. I mean, and that's how easy it can be. Not quite as fast as the domino joiner, but it's really, really flexible.
And pretty close.
And really accurate as well. So if you've got just an Origin at home, this is a good way to experiment with those domino joints. Why don't we walk everybody through it, start to finish?
Let's do it. From the start.
From the absolute start.
Yeah, just got your plate. You need to do your first scan. This might be a little bit of a reminder for everybody, but hey.
It never hurts to drive it home, you know? So the reason we wanted to do this, we've got, a bunch of people that have been taking part in our post-promo training session that are learning about plate for the first time. Definitely want to reiterate all this stuff if you're learning about plate for the first time. And even if you've had plate for a while, it takes some practice to wrap your mind around this stuff. So we want to give you an excuse to practice and follow along with the steps to set up your plate correctly.
First things first, we're making a grid, and we're making one grid that should last us a lifetime of plate on plate. So we're going to do it the right way. We're going to put that engraving bit in backwards, pointy side in, into the collet, so it gives us a perfect 0.25 inch probe.
Mm-hmm. The way that we set up workspaces with Origin is we go through the list that you'll see on Origin's screen. It's scan, design, cut. We're going to make a scan. The very next step is to make a grid under the design tab, and then we'll drop in our design and get to cutting.
Yep.
But yeah, let's start with that scan.
For this scan, since we're going to be doing a whole bunch of different things, I like to have a nice neutral background in the plate window because that's what you're going to see for the rest of the time using this. So clean piece of ply, piece of white paper, whatever it is. Go into scan, new scan, and start.
And now the reason for this is, like I said, plate is the universal template for Origin, and Origin saves these digital workspaces as you create them and allows you to return to them indefinitely, and allows you to save as many workspaces as you want. So what we're going to do today is we're going to set up this template workspace. Then we're going to copy that template workspace and make another workspace where we're going to place all of these domino templates specifically. And then we'll be able to save that domino workspace for any time that we want to do a cabinet project similar to this. So the first thing Jake's doing here after he scans is renaming that scan plate template. Renaming your workspace is going to allow you to come back to that really easily and find it anytime you want it.
Now we can go ahead and hit those 3 dots, hit the duplicate button.
Hey Jake, I'm going to stop you for a second. I think I want to put the grid on it first.
Okay. That's
before
fine.
we duplicate that template.
That is just fine.
Just so that people don't have to make that grid every time they make a new workspace.
Okay, so gridding, since we already have everything set up with our 1/4 inch bit, hit new grid. Make sure that it knows exactly what bit size that you have. In our case, it's 0.25 inches. Oops. My bad. And lower just below the top surface of plate. And if I zoom out here, you're going to see this notch. There's an identical notch on either side of the window. You need to change the edge by hitting the edge button. That dotted line is representing what face of the bit you're using as a probe. Just tuck it into that little notch. Tap once. Come over to the right-hand side. Tap twice. For the third one, go to the top of the window, lift the tool, and drop it down into this kind of backwards D-shaped hole. And if you're ever in doubt, just line it up with the 0 and the arrow that's printed on plate. There we go. Now we know exactly where the center of this window is. Because we know that, we know exactly where the fence is, we know exactly where the reticle is, we know exactly where the flags are.
And we're going to know exactly where the edge mortising adapter attaches.
Exactly.
I'm spilling the beans on the last demo, but we've got a bunch of different ways that we're doing this today.
All right, so now we can duplicate it in workspaces. Duplicate. We can just open that up and rename it. Let's go for 6mm domino. Cabinet.
Nice. And a small change compared to the way that we usually teach this. Often we'll make one workspace for every little bit of hardware that we use, but today we're going to put it all in one workspace and make that workspace like a project workspace, because there are 3 different ways that we're going to install these dominoes. We've got 2 different widths for each domino. You got that tight width for locating. We got that wide width for some slop. And we're just going to put it all in one workspace here.
Totally.
So how do you get these domino files onto Origin? That's where the hardware catalog comes in. So let's pop over to the computer here and take a look at that. Here's Shaper Hub. And if I want to go to the hardware catalog and look for hardware, I can hit Explore Hardware right here, or hit the search button and pop into hardware up in the upper left. So let's do that. And then right at the top, because this sorts alphanumerically, we've got the 10mm domino, 12mm domino, 14mm domino. There's a whole host of sizes for these. We want the 6mm domino for this cabinet. And you can filter to search for hardware. We know these are made by Festool, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. And show 7 results. If I scroll down here, I'll see that 6mm domino. I can click into this. And before I sync this to my files, which is going to send it to Origin, let me show you this page. So the first thing we have right at the top is an illustration and a title, so that you know that the page that you're on corresponds to the hardware that you have in your hand. We have some dimensions that you can use as kind of a reality check to make sure that you're looking at the right thing. We have some recommended cutters. So the 5mm metric cutter is what we recommend for this. If you're using an inch cutter, the closest inch cutter that we sell is the 1/8 inch, but the 5mm is perfect. Because we want a little bit of clearance. We don't want that. We don't want to use a 6mm cutter, which is right line on line. We want to give Origin a little bit of buffer room, and we'll use the 5mm router bit for that. And then down here we have the cut files that are going to be sent to Origin, and you'll notice that there are actually 3 of these. And this relates to something on the Domino joiner that's really unique. There are 3 widths on the Domino joiner itself that you can select by turning a small knob, and those are the standard width. The next size up from that adds 6mm to the width of any domino, and then the next size up from that adds a total of 10mm in width to any domino. So you have a tight fit, you have a loose fit, and then you have an extra loose fit. And the reason for that is because you want to have only one, ideally, locating reference in any joint. And so what we're doing today, since we have just 2 mortises, we're going to do 1 tight mortise and 1 plus 6mm mortise for every joint. This is a small cabinet, so we're only using 2 dominoes per joint. If you were making a bigger cabinet and you were using 3 dominoes per joint, you would again use 1 tight connection and then 2 wider connections. And then if you were doing furniture, it would be even different from that. You know, choose your own adventure there. Yeah. But we're going to go ahead and sync these to Origin by clicking Sync to My Files, and this is going to send all 3 of those domino files to Origin. It says successfully added to my files, so we're good to go.
All right. Now I can hop into Design, Import, and under my Hardware tab, I have my 6mm dominoes. And there we go. That's standard size, +6, plus 10. Since we're going to be using both the standard and the +6mm, we're going to place both those right on top of each other. So let's start with the standard size. All right. For this first application, since we are working on the bottom and top edges of our material to create that butt joint, we are going to place our file at -40mm. The reason for that being we're working with 20mm plywood, so we're aiming for the center of the edge of our top and bottom, and the bottom reference face, the bottom shelf, is 50mm, so we're just subtracting that 10, half of our thickness.
Yeah, let's mock that up on the overhead cam so everybody can kind of see what you're looking at here.
So this line right here is exactly 50mm from our center point. So instead we're going to drop our domino at -40, which will be just inset
10 millimeters
10
from
millimeters.
that fence, which is 10 millimeters from the edge. And now we know our plywood isn't exactly 20 millimeters. Plywood is never exactly the size that it's advertised as, but we've been really careful with our reference faces here. So Jake has spent some time to mark out all the reference faces. This is partly also why we built the cabinet this way. So if I pull up the cabinet here to look at this one more time before we get to cutting, what we're doing, if for example this was the top connector piece on this cabinet, we're going in 10 millimeters from this top edge, from the top down. And then we're also going to use this reference surface here, this top face here, as the reference surface of the joint on the edge of this top piece. And since we're using this reference surface and going 10 millimeters in from that, the mortises are going to line up exactly with each other. Now, if our plywood is thin, which it is, it almost certainly is, and we did 10 millimeters down this way on the side panel and 10 millimeters up this way from this edge, we'd have a problem, right? But we've gone ahead and we've marked all those reference faces, and make sure you keep track of these in your project. We are shameless about marking things with pencils, you know?
Yeah.
We even marked the tight and the +6mm sides on every single one also, because that's another thing to contend with really here.
When you
Not only do you have a reference face, you've got these 2 different sizes and a front and a back.
Yeah, when you get in the throes of cutting dominoes, it's very easy to forget what is going where. So what we do here is put a little T wherever the tight domino is supposed to be, and that means, okay, I know that one's tight, that one's going to be loose.
Nice.
Cool.
Cool, you want to swap panels here?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll take this one. I'll hand you this one.
All right. So, where's my T? Right here. Drop those flags. Front fence. Bam. Now, the other thing to note is we were happy with the dimension right at 0, but if you wanted, say, farther in or farther closer to your edge, you would just, instead of placing it along the 0 line on the x-axis, you could place it anywhere. But we're going to drop this down to -40 in the y direction and 0 in the x direction.
Yeah, it's just so easy to keep that symmetric,
Yeah.
you know? And that's going to place the center of that domino 70 millimeters in from the edge of your cabinet, based on that side flag dimension.
All right, we're not quite done. We need to import one more. You need to grab that +6mm and do the same thing and place it right on top of the other one.
Nice.
Starting to look like a sausage.
Yeah, kind of.
All right, so you need to be very cautious of which one you're selecting while you're cutting. It's going to most likely want to cut the smaller one first, but it's super easy to switch back and forth between them, even though they're on top of each other, by just hitting select. Cool.
All right, you want to let it rip?
I am ready. There we go.
Cool. All right, and now that we've got this set up, this is exactly what we were doing before at the top of the show. Jake's just going to go ahead and use AutoPass to go ahead and route straight down to the bottom of these mortises. And I think I said 3 passes earlier, but it looks like he's doing them just in 2 passes. It's nice and quick. The depth is really adjustable on these because there's a whole host of configurations that you might want to use these dominoes in. What we're doing right now is we have 6 by 40 millimeter dominoes, 6 millimeters thick and 40 millimeters long. And our plywood obviously isn't deep enough to cut all the way through 20 millimeters equally on each side. And so what we're doing here is 15 millimeters deep on one side and 25 millimeters deep on the other side. A fun fact about the dominoes themselves is that they kind of come in these standard lengths, but they're actually trimmed just a little bit shy of that. So we measured a few dominoes earlier, and they are at about 38.5 millimeters total length. And so you can actually make those cuts to a direct total of 40 millimeters, not have to worry about adding any weird little extra clearance, and you're going to be just fine there.
I'm on a roll.
Yeah, keep rolling. This is what we love about AutoPass. It makes super quick work of this repeatable stuff here. Jake's just going to keep on cruising through these. With plate, plate is that bridge between the digital and the physical world, and just like when using a router template, you put a router template down and reference it to your workpiece. We got a little misalignment here. Speaking of alignment with the physical space, go ahead and take your time there, Jakey. Just like aligning any other router jig to your work, plate brings this digital template along with it. So you'll notice that we've been moving plate around quite a lot, but Origin will always make that cut in the same place inside plate's window every time, no matter where you move plate around. So that's what's so cool about it. We place this template in that kind of digital workspace. We use the physical reference features on plate to move it around and align it with our work. And then it puts that cut exactly where we expect it every time, without having to reset with shaper tape every time.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Not bad. Okay.
What I love too is we're not using any clamps for this situation because we're not really moving our Origin around so much. Everything's just staying with friction. I'm just moving slightly side to side, and we are to the point where we're kind of hanging plate off the edge for some of these cuts, and that's where it can get a little tippy. Comes with clamps to make that not a thing, or in our case, we're just
we've got all this material
sliding another piece under there, and it's totally good.
Nice. That looks great. I think we got the point across. You want to move on to those shelf mortises?
All right. So I have my bottom marked. What we went ahead and did is just measure halfway up, 11 inches, give ourselves a nice line all the way across.
And this is what I was talking about at the top of the show, where this is so hard to do with the domino joiner, is how do you place a domino mortise in the middle of a panel? It's trickier than it looks, and I think doing this with Origin and plate is probably the easiest way. So all you need to do is line that reticle of plate up with the line. let's go through the process of definitely, I mean, we obviously need to import that file, you know, and then maybe show the reticle one more time then also after that, so we can really drive home the idea that we're placing this thing in the middle of the window and we're using the reticle to line up that middle of the window for this one.
Tell you what, I'm actually just going to copy this one right here.
Nice.
Copy. Drag that back up to 0, 0, 0. Place. Copy. Place.
Sweet. And now we've got that lined up. You can see on Origin screen that's lined up in the center of that grid, right in the center of Plate's window. And the way that we align things to the center of Plate's window in the physical world is with this snap-down reticle. We also want these to be aligned 70 millimeters from the edge, a flag's width away from the edge. So we're going to use that side flag in conjunction with the reticle to line up with Jake's mark in the middle of this panel. There you go. And this is the plus 6 millimeter side.
Thank you.
Nice.
Ready to boogie.
Ready to go. That's it.
That's it.
That's so much easier than lining up the joiner for those.
Yeah.
I gotta say.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that's just killing me when I use the domino joiner is how do I line it up in the middle of a panel. So, there you go. That's application 1 and application 2. Application 3, I think we're going to come back to.
Yes, after the break. That's going to be with the edge mortising adapter.
That's going to be with the edge mortising adapter. That's going to be a ton of fun. We're actually ahead of schedule on this one. We put demo 3 after the break.
Cruising.
We're cruising. Okay, so we're going to, I hope you guys have a lot of questions to keep the show rolling. Have those questions ready for the end. But, okay, without further ado, mid-show break, this is when that poll question comes up. Goose, let's go ahead and pull up the poll question. And the poll question today to enter that giveaway is, would you like a trade-in program to upgrade your Gen 1 Origin to a Gen 2? We're just feeling this one out. So, would you like a trade-in program? Answer yes or no. And then if you have any additional suggestions or context that you would like to add, it's an open text box, free response. So feel free to tell us whatever you'd like. But preferably yes or no first. That helps us kind of sort the answers. While that's up.
Yep. We are going to be a couple places coming up. We will be at the Fide Woodworking Show in Connecticut very soon, like next week.
Next week. That's April 26th and 27th. And it's at the Connecticut Valley School of Woodworking, just outside of Hartford, Connecticut. We're really excited. We're going to have a tent there. We're going to be doing Origin demos. But we're also excited because there's a whole list of speakers who are going to be there giving presentations on the order of like 45 minutes each or so. A lot of really interesting stuff. I know a couple of them. Larissa Huff is going to be doing a talk on steam bending. Owen Madden, a phenomenal cabinet maker, is going to be giving a talk on how their shop, Rowan Woodwork, makes their fine cabinets and how they get the precision that they need for these super high dollar jobs.
And then Kyle
Kidwell,
who is
another one.
Just knocking it out of the park with some amazing Origin joinery in his fine furniture.
Yeah, Origin Joinery, just phenomenal furniture in general. Check him out at Kidwell Fabrications on Instagram. He's going to be giving a talk on running a fine furniture shop and some of the joinery and design that goes along with that. It's going to be really fascinating. So I can't wait to hear those.
Yeah.
Yeah, come say hi. Check us out. April 26th and 27th. It's a free event. Fine Woodworking just asks that you register in advance. So go ahead and give them a register. And I think Ted's got the link for that in the chat.
It's going to be awesome. All right. We have another fun accessory to announce. We've been recommending that you have something like this for a long time, but now we actually have an option for you to buy from our store. It is a stainless steel pry bar that has one hooked end, one flat end, but here's the kicker. You might be able to see it glimmer. That edge, both edges, are sharpened to a perfect point so that it doesn't damage your material when you're prying it up. Just like every other pry bar out there we've ever used does.
Right.
We specifically wanted these ground to be shallow enough to sneak under your material. If I can demonstrate this. When you have a bunch of double-sided tape down, so that bevel gets right under there and pops it up.
Yeah. So there's a lot of trade-offs that actually go into this. You want something that's not too thick and not too thin. So we kind of shied away from the putty knife, which tends to bend. We also shied away from the cheap bench chisel that tends to be a little too thick. That's how it kind of landed on this thickness. And then obviously it needs to be sharp and robust. So we put a 30-degree angle on that. It's going to be sharpenable. You can wail on it like a pry bar too, if you want to. It's totally durable.
Yep. Or you can shave with it.
Really great to. It's really great to just pry up stuff off a workstation shelf, your bench, etc.
Yep.
Cool. So,
check it out in the store.
Check it out. Shapertools.com. That's it.
That's it. All right.
We have a shop tour. It's been a while since we've talked about this, but we love when you send us shop tours.
Yeah.
Because we like seeing what's going on out there in the community. We learn a ton about how we set up our shop here from some of the shop tours that you all have sent in. The thing that I want to work on next is clamp storage rack. We had a shop tour that I learned a ton about clamp storage from not too long ago.
Definitely.
So we learn a lot from them. And if you send us a shop tour, so here's the kicker. Send us a shop tour. We'll send you something nice in return as thanks. So to do that, please send your shop tour to sessions@shapertools.com. That's our email address. And the goal is for that shop tour to be a video, 3 to 4 minutes long in landscape orientation. And if you would narrate it for us, that would be really nice. That would be ideal. You don't have to do any fancy editing. You don't have to script it. Total stream of consciousness is fine. If you don't want to clean up your shop, that's fine too.
Totally okay.
So in that spirit, we have a shop tour today from Garrett. He sent this in to us a couple of weeks ago. So let's roll the tape.
Okay, I enjoy seeing other shop tours, so here's a tour of my shop. This is the basement workspace and included with our apartment. Building was originally built in 1860 or something like that. So it's a 7-foot by 13 feet or 2.2 by 4 meters, including the giant cutaway for the stairs. So we'll start with safety. We got the earmuffs and face shield up on the wall, so they're easily accessible, so they actually get used. So there's no more important safety rule than to wear safety glasses. We have the shaper station shaper over here with the wrench. I'm working on some projects. That goes down to here. I've got just a regular shop vac for dust collection, and I added a nice plug to the wire of at the end of the shop vac plug to plug the shaper in. So they both plug into the shop vac, both dust collection and electricity. So then I kind of have this really long cord to run, which helps when I do projects outside when I have need more space. So I was working on a Peak, this nice plastic piece, something for work, and this is my more recent project using the shaper and trace and all those features for measurement equipment case for calipers, micrometer, thread pitch gauge, all in a nice piece of black walnut. And down here is the rest of the woodworking tools. Small space. This box I built when I was in my teens. I've got a case for other measurement stuff, chisels, bits, saws, pretty basic stuff, and then the giant, Stanley number 7 hand plane, because I don't have a thickness planer or a joiner, so I have a hand plane. And you can never have enough clamps, and 4 is certainly not enough, but that's what I've got to deal with. Then the rest is kind of other non-woodworking stuff, but still maker things. So a lot of Raspberry Pi and electrical engineering type stuff, function generator, power supply, oscilloscope, hand tool, battery powered tool, space and batteries on 3D printed mounts, metalworking tools, so storage stuff over here, nice cabinet for chemicals that was probably was fairly expensive, but kind of live with that for the rest of my life. Hopefully, it's pretty heavy. We'll get it out of here at some point. And then a tool cart I built when I got my first welder that now sits down here, and I lug all the heavy tools outside to work on my car. And then some more storage and my first attempt at like a French cleat setup right over here with all the little bits and drawer setup from my grandfather that I ended up with a couple months ago and kind of made my own. Added all the labels. And yeah, that's it. So you don't need a huge space to do some woodworking at least. Okay, bye.
Such a cool space.
I love that.
Yeah. My first thought when I saw that flammables cabinet was like, how the heck did they get that down there, and how are you going to get it out?
Yeah. I love the little micrometer case, the
Yeah.
walnut micrometer case.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing your space
Cool
with
as
us.
heck. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
And we heard Garen's in the chat. Garrett is in the chat with us today, so give him some props for that shop tour, everybody. Yeah, thanks again.
Cool. All right. Let's move on to some edge mortising adapter
Action. Edge mortising adapter action.
So we got to put some holes in the top edges for the last remaining. I guess this could be either a top, bottom, or shelf. They're all the same. So what I've done is write reference. This is my reference face. I'm going to press my edge mortising adapter up against this so that when we go to assemble, it all comes together like butter. So that side's facing out. Just using some MFT quick clamps here. More tension.
Nice. Yeah, love
Boom.
this setup.
Set this to the side.
Here,
Yeah.
I'll take that panel from you also.
This guy.
Yeah, get that out of the way. Oh boy. Grip strength. Nice.
All right. Swing. So for this particular scenario, I'm going to be going right for the center of the window. And that is going to drop in to the pinholes and thread in.
Yep. Now, remember we did the reticle earlier. Let's keep that on the overhead cam. Remember we did the reticle earlier. The reticle snaps down and lines up to the center of the window. This edge mortising adapter, the face of that edge mortising adapter also is exactly lined up with the center of that window. And then it has a center mark and it has 2 side marks. Those side marks are lined up with the dimensions of those side flags. So we can use those marks as a reference when we can't quite reach the flags.
Yep. I did the same thing. I've marked this side has a T. That's going to be for the tight one. That side has nothing. That'll be for the loose one. Let's go ahead and start off with the tight one.
Mm-hmm.
Visually lining up that tick mark. Come in with some quick clamps.
Goose says it's a little high for the camera, so maybe after we get this clamped up, we kind of shimmy it down a little bit so that everybody can see.
All right.
Classic Goose. If only you guys could hear what Goose says to us during these shows.
Better?
What do you think, Goose? Is that better? I can't hear him now, so we're going to roll with it.
Okay.
Goose says tilt the camera up a little bit. Okay, there we go. Okay, and one last thing that we have to do, because the edge mortising adapter, the edge of that edge mortising adapter is right in the center of the window. We're actually trying to use the edge mortising adapter kind of like we used the front fence right at the beginning of the show. We're using it to reference that the domino holes should go 10 millimeters forward of that. And so we need to represent that on our workspace.
Yeah. If this is now 0, show the overhead for me real quick. If this is now 0, we're going 10 millimeters forward.
Yeah, and actually let's show that here right on top of it with this edge down here.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's 0, and we're going 10 millimeters forward to match those mortises that we made earlier. Nice. So we just have to copy those templates one more time and drag them 10 millimeters up.
Copy. I also have a 10 millimeter grid right now, so it makes it super easy to just boop, 10 millimeters. Copy. Boop. And here's another pro tip. Clear your cut history so you don't get confused on which one you're cutting.
Hey, that's a good one. Yeah, so
That-
you're going to start above the center of the window, and then you're going to only cut the blue one, basically. Yeah.
That, or you can actually change the ones that you're not currently using to guides, so you won't accidentally cut them. But yeah, take it
I
from.
like this cut history tip. It's just a nice visual prompt.
Yeah. All right, so we're going a little deeper for this one because the face mortises were 15 millimeters. Our dominoes are 40. So we need to go to 25.
Nice. Cool. And we're checking our AutoPass settings there. That looks cool. One thing to note is that we're using the 5 millimeter router bit for this. The 5 millimeter router bit, I believe, has a 20 millimeter cut length on it. So it's ideal for cutting 3/4 inch plywood all in one pass. You can actually go deeper than that. It's important to know your router bit. The depth that you can cut in total can be deeper than that 20 millimeters. But it's important to make sure that you're not trying to cut the side of something that's deeper than that. So you're doing all this at what we would call a finish pass. So it's going to keep that same dimension and width all the way down to the bottom. So you can actually cut past the flute length on this router bit.
Exactly. All right. Let's get after it.
Okay, cool. You're going to do 2 on this side and then flip it over and do 2 on the other side?
Exactly.
Okay, nice. We're going to do 2 on this side, then we're going to do 2 on the other side, and when we flip that over, we're going to pause to talk for a moment about that reference surface again, because this is an easy one to mess up, and we want to make sure that you guys can keep these reference surfaces straight as we flip this thing around in space and cut the other side. Because if you were to clamp the opposite side against the the workbench, then you might end up with a problem. You might accidentally have two different reference faces on two sides of the same part, which would be no good. We really like using these quick grip clamps for these because I think these are the easiest ones to use single-handed for attaching plate with the edge mortising adapter to vertical work.
And this one is getting a big one.
Nice. Pretty easy routing today, gotta say.
Super easy.
But I love, even for the simple stuff, we say Origin is the best hole saw in your shop. I'm gonna say Origin might be the best domino joiner in your shop.
Okay.
Shots fired, Sedge. So here's what I was talking about with flipping this thing around. Now, it's really important to remember not only what your reference face is, but also which side the tight and loose dominoes are going on. So the reference face is the side facing Jake, so he's keeping that side facing him and just turning that around. Now, the thing that you'll notice is that the T is on the opposite side from what it was earlier, because we're cutting all of the tight dominoes on the front of this cabinet. So you've got to keep track of that mentally.
Sweet. I like to do the tight one first because I feel like it's just easy to remember. And if I accidentally do the loose one tight first, it's fixable. Not the end of the world.
Yeah, that's a good way to remember. Whatever works for you, man. Whatever works for you all at home. Whatever helps you remember. I love just writing things on there. Definitely making the process as consistent as possible is a big help. And this is what you were talking about with recutting only the blue things.
I know
Really
that we're
handy.
not doing this, just doing this one.
Cool. There we go. So cruising down through this in 4 passes, and the advantage of AutoPass there is more obvious the deeper you go. This would be 4 times stopping and changing that depth, whereas now Jake gets to just cruise through that all in one go. Reminder for anyone who hasn't tried AutoPass yet, there's a free trial that's available to everyone. I believe it's about 2 weeks long. You can sign up for that on Origin itself, and just give it a shot, because you never know if you like it till you try it. Save it, though, for a project that you'll use it for. That's my one word of advice. Don't save it too long, There's a middle ground there where you're not waiting forever. You're actually using it. But try to save it for something where you're going to really get some advantage from it,
All right. Bring it home with the loose one. Sweet. Another thing I love about AutoPass is it doesn't plunge immediately into your material. It goes down just above your material and then ramps in as soon as you start moving. And if you've spent enough time with Origin, you'll know that sometimes you plunge on a path you didn't actually mean to accidentally.
Mm-hmm.
So this is great because instead of just diving down to your first depth, it gives you a second to realize, oh, that's the wrong path.
Yeah, it gives you a little pause.
Yeah.
That's nice. All right, shall we slap this thing together?
Let's do it.
All right.
You know the rules.
Oh boy, there's a lot of installing to do today. Whoever doesn't cut assembles. All right, I got the mallet out while you were away, and the fit of these tight dominoes is very nice. You want it to be nice and snug. Not going to put any glue in there or anything today. And then these are snug through the thickness. This is the loose side. These are snug through the thickness, but they have a little slop along the length, left and right. And because you don't want to over-constrain your cabinet, you don't want two reference surfaces fighting each other. That's why we do one tight one and one loose one, even though Origin is quite precise. Just best practice for the domino. What if you slap that side together and I keep going with this?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
All right. So we're looking for that reference writing. That's facing out.
You want the mallet?
I'm going to get low. I was born with two of them.
Oh, I'm one domino short.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Going in blind. Last one.
All right. Here, let's turn this sideways. Just a little bit so folks can see.
Okay.
Okay.
Now for the fun part.
Okay, which side's the front? That side's the front.
That's the front.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. Nice. No back on this cabinet. Putting the back on the cabinet's another show. Yeah, there you go. Square. All our edges are well aligned. We got nice smooth surfaces there going off the edge. I'd call that a success.
Some glue and some clamps and you're ready to go.
Nice. See you next time.